Hello students, this is Mrs. Miller, and the purpose of this video is to introduce you to author's tone and the mood that is created in writing. First of all, I want you to consider what is author's tone. Tone indicates the author's attitude or feelings about what they have written. I want you to think about when somebody uses a specific tone of voice. For example, if your mother were yelling at you, you would know that she has an angry tone of voice. However, in literature, you don't hear how somebody sounds, so you have to determine the tone by other things, usually by the words that they use and the punctuation that's used as well. That's how you can know the author's attitude or feelings about what they have written. Author's tone is described by adjectives. For example, you might say, the author of this book sounds cynical, or depressed, sympathetic, cheerful, outraged, positive, angry, sarcastic, prayerful, ironic, solemn, vindictive, intense, or excited. Those are just some examples of tones that authors use in their writing. Remember, tone is not an action, it is an attitude. Tone is not explained or expressed directly. You're not going to read a passage and they say, well, the tone of this or this writing has an angry tone. No. You have to figure out the tone based on what the author has written, the word choice, the words that are used. A reader must read between the lines to feel the author's attitude and identify the tone. In other words, the reader has to make inferences about the author's attitude based on what he or she says. Now, tone is different than mood. Sometimes we get tone and mood confused, but mood is something a little different. Remember, tone is the author's own attitude toward the subject. You can think of it again as your mother is very angry with you, and think about what she might say or write if she's very angry. The mood is the feeling you would get then as you are reading her angry letter. So the mood is the emotion the author wanted the readers to feel while reading about a subject. An author's tone leads to the story's atmosphere. That helps us to figure out, it gives us an understanding of the setting as well, but that's the story's atmosphere. Some examples of author's tone. Let's read through this together, okay? The girl remembered little from the raid at Okadon in which she had been captured. She knew her parents had been killed. She had no idea what had happened to her brothers and sisters. Much of what she had experienced had been so horrible that she had simply shut it out of her mind. Well, the author's tone is very serious, and it gives us an atmosphere of tragedy. That's the feeling there, it is one of tragedy. This leads to a mood of sadness, sympathy, and caring in the reader when reading this passage. So because of the words that the author used in the situation that's going on, we feel sadness or sympathy for the character. Okay, let's do another. Just look at the Titanic. The captain said, "Even God can't sink this ship." Then, on the first voyage across the Atlantic Ocean, boom, it hit an iceberg and sank. The author's sarcastic tone inspires a slightly humorous atmosphere in spite of the tragedy. This puts the reader in a cynical mood. So you see how the tone leads to the mood. Here's another. When we realized he was still in one piece, he knew that at the very least he must be completely flat, with his face peering out of his own bottom and his brains leaking out of his ears. The author uses a very humorous tone to inspire a comic atmosphere. This leads to a playful mood in the reader. It also helps the reader identify with and care about the characters. Let's look at another example. By nightfall on Monday, the center of the storm had barely moved, and icy winds of hurricane force swept across an area from Virginia up to Nova Scotia, Canada. The wind was so powerful that in Liberty, New York, the local train station had its roof entirely ripped off. The author's impersonal tone inspires a serious atmosphere. So this is objective writing. It tells us specifically what happened. It's not giving a lot of emotion or using emotional words. It's just very impersonal. And this is typical of nonfiction, such as news reports. You know, when anchors are telling us the news, they're not telling us their opinion. They're serious, but impersonal. They're just telling us what happened. The mood for this piece might be considered studious or academic. What is the tone of this one? The next minute, Winn-Dixie looked like a fury bullet shooting across the building, chasing that mouse. He was barking and his feet were skidding all over the polished picket quick floor, and people were clapping and hollering and pointing. They really went wild when Winn-Dixie actually caught the mouse. The author's enthusiastic tone inspires an active, lively atmosphere. The author hopes to influence the readers to be in an excited mood, anticipating more action. Let's look at this one. Dana grinned malevolently. His teeth were nubby and yellow, like an old barn dog's. Kneeling on Roy's chest, he hauled back to hit him again. The author's angry tone inspires a violent atmosphere. The author may be hoping to inspire a tense and uneasy mood in the reader, emphasizing the conflicts in the story. Let's look at this poem. Corny. It sounds cliched, but at times like this, I miss my dad. I don't remember him. He died of cancer when I was 3. Pictures are all that's left. My favorite one is us sitting on a bench eating ice cream. Our knees are knobby the same way. We're both grinning like hyenas. He's pointing at the camera. I haven't had a dad in 12 years. Most of the time, that's okay. But today, right now, I'd like a hug from him. Poets often bare their souls in their poems. The poet's grieving tone reveals her deepest feelings about her father, creating an atmosphere of sadness and longing. This inspires a mood of sympathy and caring in the readers. So here is a list of some examples of tone. You can read through these on your own. And the next time you read a passage, try to identify the author's tone. It will help you get the message of the text.